Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, Commissioners. Call. We have Commissioners Fawcett, Ward, Buell, Sorber, and Kaiser present. And we will move to election of officers. As per the policy that we passed last month.
Yes, that is.
You have the correct officer?
Yes. So as you recall, the commission passed the new policy to ensure that everybody on the commission could serve the office of president. So the current order based on longest term time on the commission and never served as president, first option would be Commissioner Buell.
But I will pass this year, but do intend to, in 25-26, take it on.
Then it would pass. The second option would be Commissioner Fawcett.
I will accept that duty if everybody is fine with it.
Absolutely.
Councilor, should we do a motion or is it just happen?
No.
It's up to you.
To accept.
We do got a motion to decide the other officers as well, right?
That's right. And then the second in the order of priority would be the vice president, according to the new policy. So, which would be Commissioner Sorber.
I believe Chip.
Commissioner Buell.
Should it be Chip since he passed on the.
Oh, it's not written that way, but yes,
Whatever.
So.
See, we've already found our first gap.
So the vice president are the only ones that are prescribed, and then the rest of them we decide on.
That's correct.
Okay.
Why don't we just have a vote at the end to confirm the whole slate once we decide it? Just
sounds good.
officiate it.
Yeah.
So we have president and vice president.
And the rest. Anybody have any?
The treasurer.
Anybody got any desires?
I was treasurer prior. I mean, I can surely do it again.
I've been secretary many times. I'd be happy to do that again. Unless somebody else wants it.
You have any preferences?
Nope, I have no preference.
What's left?
Secretary.
Secretary? I would be happy to do that. If it was treasurer.
Your vice president.
Is there a
second vice president?
Sounds like
Yep, that works.
We need a motion on that or we?
Yeah, let's just vote to accept the slate as discussed. The new officers for the 2024-25 fiscal year would be Commissioner Fawcett as president, Commissioner Buell as vice president, Commissioner Ward as second vice president, Commissioner Sorber as treasurer, and Commissioner Kaiser as secretary. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
Thank you.
Wheels it violent.
All right, yeah. Okay, so I guess we're moving on to committee assignments. Sean, did you want to talk through that?
Well,
Does anything need to change?
it's up to you guys. As you see in the far right column, there's the commissioner assigned or volunteered or voluntold or however you guys want to do it. Not everything needs a commissioner, as you can see, it is a duplex page, so there's another page behind there. And if there's something that you're interested in that somebody's not already in, or if one of you wants to stay on where you're at, that's up to you.
Anybody having strong feelings about any of these?
I don't, but Sean, is there something that a commissioner is not signed up for that you think one should be present, certainly lacking here?
We have all of the city councils there, and what we've typically done is monitored agendas and gone in when things affect the port, but there's also the opportunity for giving port updates on an annual basis. So it'd be nice to have a commissioner in that area, come along for that and say hi and meet the new councils. And so, yeah, if you're passionate about a city that you're close to and would like to go to some of those, that'd be good. Or the chambers as well. We have the South County Chamber. Brian, you're there. Some of those
From time to time. Yeah, it depends on the day.
That's just, good touch points. The South County is doing a lot of networking stuff. So if you were looking to meet folks out in the area, some of the smaller businesses in the South County area, that's the place to do it.
South County, I mean, if it says all on there, but if somebody's not available, I could be available too.
Okay. We'll make sure you get on the distribution list for the emails. And
That's gonna fire district. I could probably help you with that one.
I can circle back with you too. I do owe a couple of meetings, get-togethers, post review. I've met with two of you so far, and we can talk about some of these when we meet in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. There's nothing further on that. We will move on to additions to the agenda. The additions.
President, I would like to add one item I've discussed with each of you, but wherever you think it's appropriate, I'd like to have a discussion and possibly a motion to clarify how we do cost of living increases for the executive director post review.
Okay. Make that broad as to how we do cost of living and merit increases.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the discussion. No, I think just whatever president would like it on.
I think we could probably just do it at the end of new business, right before your report. So we'll just make that item D under new business.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
respectfully, as an addition to the agenda, could you move public comment up prior to your adoption of the minutes? I'm here to speak to your May 8th minutes.
Yeah, if nobody else has an issue with that. So we can move public comment up to item 3 and consent agenda to item 4. With that, we will open up public comment. Senator Johnson.
Thank you for the accommodation. So for the record, my name is Betsy Johnson. My address is P.O. Box R, Scappoose, and I am here to comment on your May 8th minutes, specifically under commissioner reports. And I know that the commissioner reports are reflective of the opinion of the commissioners. But in this case, respectfully, I'm going to speak to Commissioner Ward's comments about specifically the desire for the port to track expenses because the airport and marina, now I'm quoting from the minutes, because the airport and the marina, neither of these organizations are self-sustaining. And if it were not for the port, they would go away. And I take exception to that characterization. I think that it is laudable that the port track expenses across your whole portfolio. It's best business practices and it's prudent business. But I would ask that that characterization about the port, the marina and the airport would go away, but for the port's largesse. It seems to suggest that those two elements in your very vast and comprehensive portfolio are charity cases. It leaves aside that the port chose some time ago to be responsible for public conveyances. And in the case of the airport, you have a relationship with the FAA that causes you to keep that facility open and operable to the highest FAA standards. So you chose to do that. Moreover, it suggests that the port is the only investor in the airport, and that is simply not true. There are businesses right now that are coming to the airport. They're making improvements. Private and public folks are stepping up to try to recruit a hotel that is actively underway with a vice president from Hilton coming in the very near future to look at the possibilities. That's private money. There is $60 million of private sector capital that has gone into road improvements, sewer, water, and gas. And some of you, and I thank you for coming, were in a recruitment last 2 weeks ago to speak to an international company that is interested in coming here with 250 jobs and a huge financial investment. And finally, I don't know if this correctly reflects how your calculations take into account that the port bought back a building that you owned for $1 million, that you built and leased a building that has design and construction flaws, which makes it very difficult to find a tenant. And you're continuing, I believe, to pay the state against that loan. And it still remains to be somewhat mysterious how you allocate costs, whether or not those costs are apportioned across the portfolio or whether or not they're assigned to the individual units of the portfolio. That's another story for another time. But before you approve this as a public record, and it stands as a public record, albeit the opinion of the commissioner, I would respectfully ask that it be restated to more appropriately characterize exactly what's going on at the airport. I can speak with authority about the airport. I cannot speak with authority about the marina, but I would just suggest that before this becomes a public record, that it be restated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, talk about that and when we go through the minutes.
Sounds good?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment in the room? Brady?
Very happy to see the reign of Robert come to an end. I didn't think that would ever happen. But delighted, and I'm glad with the new policy. I think it's fair. I wish you were taking it now, but I guess we can wait a year. The thing that I want to talk about is your finances, which you all know are not great, continue to not be great, and to encourage you to change your policy on next. There is no reason why that can't be revisited at any time, and they need to start paying, plain and simple. They recently received their, from the county, their permit to move forward with their modification for their land. So hopefully they're moving forward and they should start paying. And it's just that simple. You need the money and it's not a permanent decision. And I think that you should change that policy, and we'll hope that you would reconsider that policy. Thanks.
Brady? Anyone else in the room?
On Zoom.
Yeah, we're right here. Any public comment from those on Zoom?
I'll have to ask them to raise their hand.
Please raise your hand if you have a public comment.
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible to take a second bite at the apple?
Sure.
I'm not going to hobble up there. This afternoon at 1 o'clock, the Super Act is meeting, and you have a dog in that fight, a big dog in that fight. I would just encourage you as a citizen of Columbia County to call Colin Cooper or Commissioner Leanne Thompson, who are going to be the representatives at the Super Act. And what the Super Act does is to amalgamate the recommendations of all of the local acts and then fight among the other acts to see what the prioritization is out of that Super Act. And then probably in early August, there will be a final convocation of all of the acts to prioritize how to spend $40 million. In the past, Connect Oregon has been as much as $100 million. And now for a variety of complicated reasons, it's down to 40. And so it's going to be highly competitive. There's well over $100 million worth of ask. And Colin will be down, Mr. Cooper will be down there as our representative. Our project's finished. Number one is a $160,000 ask for, it was sponsored by the bar pilots, but they're not actually asking for it. They're doing it on behalf of all Columbia County river users. So you guys actually have a dog in that fight. It is to replace the 2 buoys, weather buoys at the mouth of the river. Those buoys had failed and they were without buoys for a while. One has now been restored by NOAA, but they still need the other one back and they need one in spare, because that, as Commissioner Sorber knows, is integral to the safe operation of the graveyard of the Pacific, one of the most dangerous bars in the world. And so the bar pilots took a leadership role to put that project onto the list. It doesn't benefit them. It benefits commercial mariners, recreational mariners. The National Guard uses it to look at weather for sorties over the Pacific Ocean. OSU uses it for energy, information about wave energy for beach erosion. And so they're terribly important pieces. That's number one, $160,000. That is decimal dust. The second one is you guys, the improvements out at Port Western. The third one is improvements to a commercial fishing dock in Warrenton. And the fourth is the Port of Astoria asking for an investment in Pier 2. That is a World War II facility in bad need of maintenance. So that will go to the Super Act this afternoon and a list will come out and then that list will move to the final adjudication. But if you felt inclined, you might want to call Colin and give him a little encouragement to be brave and fight like a tiger for your project.
All right. Thank you for the heads up on that.
Area Committee on Transportation, just in case you, one of those acronyms.
Something I don't like, which is using acronyms. Area Committee.
Okay. Does you have any comments online or any raised hands? Not looking like it.
I didn't see any.
Right. No further public comment. We will hop back to the consent agenda. We can either handle this as a whole, or if we want to talk about the minutes, we can do that. Do the other ones.
There's going to be a discussion on the minutes. I mean, I can make a motion to approve B and C.
That's okay.
So a motion from Commissioner Sorber to approve items B and C and seconded by Commissioner Buble. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, get back to the minutes. I think this is a question of whether we want to recharacterize what was Commissioner. I mean, it kind of, my opinion, it seems that it covers what was actually said in the meeting.
That to me, it's like, I certainly understand what is being said. Number one, there's nothing factually wrong with that as far as I understand. We do support, we pick up what is necessary to keep the airport running. And if we didn't, I guess my question would be, who would? So would private industry come in and pay those costs?
Completely possible. If the port wanted to divest, they could create an airport district. There are other alternatives.
Okay, well, certainly it's, as far as I know, we've never discussed that. But as far as what minutes mean, minutes are to reflect what was said. And I stand by what I said. I still think it is, although uncomfortable, and certainly leaves out all the details. The bottom line is we support the airport financial, and that if it weren't for us, it probably would be much more difficult to keep the airport running. So as far as this particular issue goes, I don't see that changing the minutes would be a proper reflection of that meeting.
And we do have all the meetings on recorded. That's correct still, and they're still available to the public that way.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Either of you have an opinion on it? Or?
I feel like only Commissioner Ward could revise her comments, but I feel like Mrs. Johnson's comments added to the record accomplish what you want.
Yeah, I appreciate the complexity of the issue. So that would be reflected in the minutes for this meeting.
Yeah, and I think that's great.
So if we're leaving the minutes as is, I would entertain a motion to approve them. Been moved by Commissioner Buble. Seconded by Commissioner Ward. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, old business, Marina update. Miriam?
Yes, save your energy. There is no update, and I completely on the one thing that I was supposed to say. It has a lot of time between yesterday's meeting and today. What was it, Miriam? Thank you so much. Okay. as we've talked about, we are looking at doing a feasibility study on the sustainability of the marina. And Miriam's already been talking with Paul Sorensen at BST. They've done some economic analysis of things in the area for different ports throughout the region, really respected entity that we're hoping to engage. We're still working on a scope of work with Mr. Sorensen, but hope to have something together and then get a couple of commissioners, hopefully, that want to work on that with us as well. So stay tuned. That was the update. Thank you, Miriam.
Okay. Any questions on the marina update? Item B, airport update. Probably going to be a few things to talk about.
Yes.
Morning, commissioners. Yes, there's a few things. Thank you. I'll jump right into it. So on Tuesday, July 2nd, a Vans RV 12 plane from Camas, Washington crashed into the East Taxiway Alpha. At approximately 1:30, emergency services were dispatched to the airport. The pilot was removed from the plane and taken to a local hospital. The port immediately closed the runway and taxiways while Scappoose Fire District, local police, Oregon State Police began their investigation of the site. It is important to note that a drone was used for their investigation by emergency services. This is standard practice for OSP and the fire district. Following their initial investigation, the port staff waited for local FAA investigators to arrive on site, which they did around 4:15 p.m. At which point the FAA gave the port guidance to reopen the runway and West Taxiway. The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, will be on site within the next couple of weeks to investigate the plane crash. For now, the plane will stay on site until further instructions are provided. It's in front of AirSense and just in a tie down. I spoke with the owner of the airplane, Rick Anderson from Fly It. The owner of the plane and the pilot are not the same person. He is very grateful for the teams of people who helped the pilot. The pilot is now stable and making progress. No other reports. I would like to personally thank the first responders, Brian Yablon, Chris Anderson, Jim Warren from Transwestern, Ben Paulson, and their teams for their quick response to the situation and their willingness to help with the logistics of air traffic and cleanup. Would also like to acknowledge staff member from Ash Creek, who are airport mowers, who was the first person to respond to the scene.
Wow.
The plane was removed from the taxiway by 7 p.m. and port maintenance staff were on site cleaning up the remaining debris Wednesday morning. Please know that the safety of our tenants and the users is of the utmost importance in the situation like this one. Being overly cautious keeps everyone safe, and I appreciate the understanding and patience because we did have the runway closed. Slide. Just a quick shot of the plane. They dismantled the front, the nose, and the gas line to move it, and it is now, like I said, on the tie down in front of AirSense. Next slide. On Saturday, July 6th, at about 2 p.m., I received 2 separate phone calls from John Helm at Transwestern and Scappoose Fire Chief Pritchard from Scappoose Fire District. They let me know that there was a small incident on the runway. The tenant was landing his plane on runway 15. The pilot set down the plane and noticed his tail felt unstable. The plane went off to the west side of the runway and with a possible broken leaf spring. Emergency services were dispatched. There were no injuries. The plane did damage one of our breakaway lights and maintenance has a work order to replace it. There were no closures needed, and it was quick incident from start to finish. I have no pictures of that incident. Any questions?
But my concern is that we seem to be further down on the chain of knowing when things like this happen. And of course, it's because we don't have anyone there on a regular basis. And I'm just wondering if we've done any checking into how we might change that.
For the July 2nd incident, I know Kaiser informed Sean, we immediately called Chief Pritchard. I was out there within 20 minutes of the incident, but the pilot had already been transported. I mean, had we been out there, I would have been out there immediately on the site. But at this point, there's no place for me to be. Yes, sir.
Mike Fletcher, Columbia 911. I reached out to him. Amy and I are going to meet with him and talk about getting on the contact list for dispatch calls.
What is the chain of command as far as if there's an incident at said airport at whatever time of night? Obviously, 911 would be a good start.
So right now, Chief Pritchard is dispatched typically, and he has reached out to me very quickly as well, off hours, and then Amy as well. So both of us get a phone call. Then typically the FAA is in contact with one of us, which is during the interim period. And then, so I would say, pretty quickly, obviously, again, if someone was on site, it would be immediate, but even with immediate response, emergency services are the first responders. I would just be.
Right.
Obviously, is everybody pretty happy with, obviously nobody's happy with a wreck at the airport, but I mean, is everybody pretty happy with the incident response and the chain of how it?
When I was there on Tuesday specifically, I had an opportunity to chat with quite a few of our commercial tenants, Brian and Chris, and they felt, they were immediately out on the taxiway helping us, as well as James Warren from Transwestern. I don't know how much faster we could have been there.
Is it fair to say, because it's involved in a little bit of that on the second, but is it fair to say that we do have somebody at the airport? Well, it's not an airport employee, it's the fixed base operator. Assumes Transwestern jumps in and I believe have responded to this call and assumes, and so we do have some. We're not big enough to have our own folks, but we have somebody there.
Correct. So Transwestern has been fantastic at communicating and letting either Amy or I, or in the past Miriam, know, and it goes quickly.
Some of the delay, commissioners, is from Lacey or Amy to me and then me to you. So by the time I've texted you guys the information, Lacey's been well aware.
I personally, speaking for myself, I'm way down the chain of,
Right.
somebody to call if there's been a, wreck. So don't feel, I was plenty satisfied with the response. Letting me know.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And my call to Sean is because I'm notified of anytime there's any Columbia County emergency incidents, and I saw that one and said, hey, that's of interest. I don't expect that the first thing they do is stop and call a port. They go out and deal with the emergency.
Yeah.
But I would ask that 911, I think they could use a refresher in what the port properties are. When we had the fire at the Columbia City dock and the tugboat saw it, put it out for us, and they called the Columbia River Fire responded, but nobody remembered to call the port. Yeah, I think just reminding them of port properties and what our contact procedure is on all our properties, especially the airport, would be good.
Mr. Fletcher did respond back to my email, and what I want to make sure is we don't mess up anything that's currently in place, but he says, yes, you can add points of contact for the responsible parties of an address. We don't want to distract from our FBO being notified first, because 9 times out of 10 they're there. So I will make sure we meet with him that nothing changes other than we're added, and the chain doesn't change, because like we know they are going to be there most of the time.
Right. And on the second, on the Saturday the 6th, they handled everything. And there was no, John, do I need to come out? Do you think that the port needs to be present? He was like, no, absolutely not. If everybody's safe, no injuries, the emergency services have left, we're good to go. So I respected that advice.
Of course, but my real question is, we don't have 24/7. So.
Commissioner, may I correct you?
Mm-hmm.
Transwestern is there 7 days a week, Christmas, New Year's.
But what
there at night?
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's really what I'm saying.
It's a huge cost avoidance for you guys.
Of course. But what I'm saying is there is a period of time where there is no coverage whatsoever. We don't have cameras. We have nothing to indicate that something has happened. We rely on people. Well, if it's midnight, what do?
Is there commercial flights in and out of there
No.
okay,
But we do have people taking off and landing after hours, I would assume.
so that's what I'm asking. I don't,
Yeah.
Yeah, commentary. I would presume if there was an operation happening at night, that they're in contact with Portland Tower. Because one of the first calls that we get right after an accident is the TRACON, and they wanted the N number, and they wanted any other information that we had, which we were easily able to supply. And so, I've been there since 1977. There has not been a nocturnal accident.
understood.
Is the traffic just a lot less?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the fact that these two accidents happened on a holiday weekend, it was really busy.
Yeah.
Sorry for butting in, not letting you finish. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna say exactly what Senator Johnson said, that the air traffic does notify us and you know, the pilot is at their own risk as they take off and they fly into airspace. They should be giving a flight plan. If something deviates from flight plan, you know, hopefully they're in contact with air traffic out of Portland or Hillsborough. So it's kind of somewhat of and correct me if I'm wrong, fly at your own risk, land at your own risk at certain airports at night in the dark, knowing that what is offered, we don't have a tower. So, you know, if someone decided to land and there was an accident at night, we can't be there all the time. That's just not the airport that we run.
Well, not being there is different from knowing. I mean, we live in a technological age that allows us. That's all I'm saying. And especially from a risk standpoint.
Are you talking about like cameras?
Yeah.
You have to have somebody monitoring those still to.
Well, that's the whole thing is what is available nowadays. In this day and age, it just seems to me that, I mean, obviously I'm not an expert, but I would really like to see us at least investigate to see what is possible.
We have been talking about possibly adding, I mean, just early discussions of adding a camera on the runway. But again, don't have all the details or the costs. It's been early discussions of that internally. You know, but again, monitoring them 24/7.
Is there has to be something that triggers an alert.
They're smart cameras. Go ahead.
No, my question, I guess, is, I mean, let's say, unless they're a tenant of the airport, and unless they're landing there to get fuel, somebody's gonna be there. I mean, correct? I mean, what other kind of landings are happening there that somebody that's not a tenant, somebody that's landing to get fuel at Transwestern? I mean, I don't know if people can call you 24/7 to fuel. I have no idea.
Yes.
So, I mean, is that basically what's gonna be happening there? Just because I don't know for my own, I mean.
I can just add one other thing with respect to the cameras. There have been accidents off the somebody preparing to land and an engine failure. I will tell them they landed in the field that is now the Weston treatment property. So having a camera on the runway is not dispositive.
Understood. So.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of my.
Yeah, I mean, there's technology that I'm sure, but again, there's things that happen that are completely out of our control, like these two instances. I mean, these were both unfortunate situations that are out of the port's control. And luckily it was during the day and there were people that could immediately respond to both instances. Same with the one, unfortunately, last month.
So I have a couple questions. One is, do we feel pretty good about the process and procedure we have in place for these incidents? Is that something we want to look at, update? Is there?
Always.
I'm not wanting to create a bunch of extra work, but when you have for 3 incidents in a matter of a couple months, it seems.
We talked with Transwestern, there's protocols. We want to make sure we're involving them in the NOTAMs and some different things. So
yeah,
we're collaborative.
Okay. And then
more conversations are good.
Yeah, good to check it. The other thing is, sounds like most of this is completely out of our control, but as one person, I want to make sure that we are addressing anything we can control from a safety standpoint when we have 3 wrecks in a short amount of time. Is there anything there, or is this just like, yeah, we couldn't have done anything differently?
In these 3 circumstances, this was all out of our hands. It wasn't, you know, fought or foreign object debris on on the runway. It wasn't, it was just unfortunate events.
Mechanical or pilot
Yes.
use. Okay.
So, I can't control how pilots.
I totally get that. I just wanted to ask the question to make,
No, that's
that's
a fair question, but yeah.
I guess my comment would be I would have comfort if I knew that the advisory committee would be reviewing what happened and making suggestions.
Yeah, it's on the agenda for the 29th to talk about the past month. So yeah, I can report back on what.
Better than the users to tell us if there's improvements to be made or not.
We also, just in terms of airport updates, since you brought that up, users and our commercial tenants, we do currently have a airport tenant survey ongoing right now, and it closes on the 28th. It's been open for a month to talk about what our users, it's just a survey that the committee with their collaboration put together. So I'll have some good feedback from our users, tenants and commercial tenants and at the end of the month.
any other thoughts or questions or anything? Thank you for the detailed information and glad that a pilot is recovering.
Yes.
Is the pilot still in the hospital?
Yes. As of yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Right, Lignetics and neighbors update.
Good morning again, commissioners. Want to let you know that Steve Nelson, plant manager for Lignetics, is actually traveling. He's at another plant, working with them up in Shelton, Washington, or he would have been here. But he wanted me to pass along that currently the air modeling that they had paid their consultant to do, Lignetics had paid their consultant to do the air modeling, is in DEQ's hands, and they have to review that modeling. Well, it turns out they hire a consultant to review their modeling because they can't do it in-house, and then send them a bill for $9,000. So that's in process. I believe that's following the schedule, which was the modeling should be happening through August, they thought. Progress payments have been made, he said, on the equipment that is on order, that's coming. And the scrubber replacement is scheduled for December. So the big one here, he did say they've been keeping the pile indoors as much as possible. They haven't been running on weekends. There has been some sawdust with the hot weather, but it hasn't been as quite exacerbated as it's been. Also, they also figured out a way to, they ended one contract where they don't have products showing up unannounced, where the driver is just taking a chance and, hey, I thought I'd bring you a load. And because of some procurement deal they had before, Steve said that's been turned off. So they're not surprised by product that inevitably makes them store outside and have that pile that blows. So things are moving. Their preliminary enforcement notice actions that they had for the inspection they had, all that stuff is due July 16th. And he said they're on track. Most of it's already done. So yeah, they weren't going to mess around with that and, risk getting a fine. So took action and things are good on that. So we'll keep tracking the modeling situation, and August rolls around, we might reach out and see how DEQ is doing with their consultant on that. So they want to stay on track for that December construction. So it sounds like that is currently underway.
The fact that Jan isn't here is interesting. I assume that she is.
You have.
I'm not sure where she's at.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully enjoying this nice cool weather.
How are things from your perspective?
I know that they were cited, a neighbor signed off on the ticket because it's been pretty bad lately.
Okay.
Oh, it has.
Okay, I did not know that. You mentioned that. Kim Carver, City
Yep.
Administrator.
Thank you, Kim. No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Right. Moving on to new business, resolution 2024-13, reappointing Mike Greisen, Andrew Cox, and Keith Forsyth to the Scappoose Airport Advisory Committee. Any questions on that, or Commissioner Kaiser has moved approval of resolution 2024-13. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Sorber.
I do have one question for you guys. When we were talking about this resolution moving forward, do you guys want for reappointment of positions of the committees at the Marina and the airport? Do you want to see a resolution? Because correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe it's in our policy that we need one. I was just going on some past practices that I had seen on the website. So for reappointment of positions.
That would only be for reappointment, not new.
Correct, reappointment.
So the policy says we go through the process for new members. So it came up and it would actually save a lot of staff time. If we're just reappointing new members to not have to bring staff report, resolution, all this
Reporting
process.
existing members, right?
Yeah, right. So, but it's we serve at your pleasure.
Well, is there a maximum or a minimum that either one of these advisory boards needs? No terms?
Oh, how long or how many?
How many people?
Yes, and their council.
What is the number? Just because I don't know.
The airport has 9 members.
9 members.
But we're short one right now, but there's no term.
I'm wondering if there's ever going to be an issue to where if somebody wants on it and they can't get on it because this, that was my question.
Airport is not full yet.
Okay.
Okay, and if, for example, somebody who's been on it, but there was no reason not to reappoint them.
That's kind of where I was going. Yeah. So,
The advisory committee would have the first stab at that, right? And then it would be up to you.
I think you're right. And for this incident for this reappointment, I did have the advisory committee vote on the reappointment.
Yeah, the term is 1 year?
Great.
Good.
you're on the Marina.
Yeah.
Has that been an issue that you've seen at all? Or?
No, I think it's similar to the airport in that it's not always completely full and
Understood.
Difficult to recruit people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I somewhat have a concern if there is an issue with one of the members, whether, we would hear about that from a commission standpoint. I assume that if one of the members was, if there was difficulties or something like that, they wouldn't just get automatically reappointed. There'd be some discussion.
Good question there. What would be the chain of command there that would flow through to where it would make it?
First, I think the advisory committee, if they, let's say they all like a person, but maybe we had an issue, they could recommend reappointment. And then, like you're saying, if we didn't do this, then you wouldn't have the opportunity to not approve it. So I see what you're saying. If there was something happening.
A lot of hypotheticals here, certainly, but
the rules to say they serve at the discretion of the executive director and the port commission. So
the executive director or the commission could obviously take care of it if there was an issue.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be taken care of at the time of, if there's an issue, we can address it whenever there's an issue is what I'm hearing.
Understood.
I'd be interested to know how long some people have served or the lengths of service that people have put in on this. Maybe you can get us that information, or maybe you already know it.
I don't already know it off the top of my head, but I know, as you recall at our last meeting, some meeting minutes from 1987.
Yes.
John's name was on there, helm. So I don't know if he's consistently served out of time, but.
So it's just left that could answer that one.
How long they've served.
I think it would be interesting, yeah, because the thing I'm concerned about is this is an aging group.
Yes.
And we're not bringing in people to take over, and the institutional knowledge that's held within these individuals is huge.
Agreed. And it is nice to have.
Oh, it's terrific.
For example,
yeah,
and his knowledge and his perspective as a younger pilot.
For sure. But it would also be nice to see new people coming in. And how do we encourage that?
Very nice. Yeah. Nancy brings treats.
We have good snacks.
Yes.
Wait.
Yes. Yes, we do also.
But Clayton hasn't been coming. Haven't seen Clayton for many, many meetings. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think we have two things on the table here. One, how do we want to do these reappointments? Is the commission involved? And two, if we're going to do them, we gotta.
Does anybody have an issue with just leaving it as a resolution as is? So you're getting to see the names at least, and I know it's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's not long. I mean, does anybody object to that?
Probably lean that way
Yeah.
myself.
That's fine.
I would ask, how much work are you talking about? I heard.
Days.
Deep analysis.
Yeah.
No, it's not much. It was just brought up because it's not only the airport, it's the marina as well. So I think it would be,
And
I thought it was once a year, but
was not required, right? That you
yeah, so
So I'll be back next year
it's
with
next meeting, right?
for a reappointment and or.
Remember, which in that case, it would be a resolution.
I'm personally fine with leaving it that we approve them.
Yeah.
I'm seeing head nods that way. Right.
Question, assuming that I'm a tenant at the airport or user of the marina and there's an advisory committee meeting and I want to come, not a committee.
It's absolutely.
Membership is.
And I think back in January, earlier this year, we had non-committee member join. So, I mean, attend.
Yeah, the Marina Advisory Committee, we have guests that are tenants at the marina attend most of the meetings. They give good input as well. Okay, so sounds like we're gonna leave the process as is, and we had a motion from Commissioner Kaiser and a second from Commissioner Sorber on resolution 2024-13. Any further comment, discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Amy, resolution 2024-14.
Great.
Approving broker commission policy. This is riveting stuff.
Thank you. Call me a nerd, but I'm actually really excited to be bringing this to you. Because when I first started at the board, I tackled this and rewrote it.
And then that has been many moons because work life happened and I started doing more pressing things and I just never had the opportunity to bring it up. But I noticed this issue many years ago. Maybe I shouldn't admit that I've been sitting on it like an egg for many years, but anyway. So to set the stage for this resolution, typically when the port leases property, it's handled between port staff, typically myself or Elliot, and the prospective tenant. And also historically, the port hasn't sold many of its assets. So that's why this doesn't come up that often. But recently, through guidance from the commission, we have gone down a path to hire an aviation expert real estate broker to sell or lease the new hangar, the commercial hangar. And since we've retained that realtor, it became abundantly clear that this policy needed to be cleaned up. So there are a couple of issues that I wanted to bring your attention to. There's currently 2 brokerage commission policies in place. One is from 1985 and one is from 2000. And although almost everything from the 1985 policy is within the 2000 policy didn't repeal the 1985 policy, which is standard practice. So we've got 2 in place that are not exactly the same. And then also both policies aren't currently, as you can imagine, they're 20 and 40 years old. They're not in sync with the industry best practices of real estate today. So in order to be competitive, hire the most effective real estate brokers, one of the things that needed to be changed was payment upon execution of a lease. So the way that it's currently written, it requires that once a lease is signed and a broker was involved, we pay the commission over the course of the initial term each year. So we maintain a relationship with that broker with payments from the preceding year, which is just not how it's done. So this resolution 2024-14 first adopts one single brokerage commission policy and repeals the other former 2. And then also adopts language around that lease commission payment schedule. And that was after reevaluating other port real estate brokerage policies, auditing the real estate market, and just finding that, yeah, ours was not in sync with what is expected from real estate brokers. So that is all reflected in here. One minor alteration that I wanted to propose is if you'll refer to page 2, under the real estate brokerage commission schedule, after reading it with our council more closely, I want to make it abundantly clear that the commission is paid only on the initial term of the lease. It's implied, but I want to add the word initial so that the first sentence on page 2 will say, commissions for leases with net terms shall be 5% of the net rental to the port for the first 5 years of the lease agreement, plus 3% of such net rental for the balance of the initial term. So that would be a change from your packet if you choose to approve this resolution, that I would ask that you incorporate that word change. Any questions?
I just have maybe 2 questions.
Yeah.
One is, I'm assuming this aligns with the changes in the real estate commissioning recently, I think, adjudicated.
Yes, so that is, my understanding is that that's really more on it's more impactful on the residential side. But yes.
And the second is, so we pay commissions if somebody helps us get a lease to one, not just a sale.
Only if so in this case, it all stipulates they have to enter into basically an agreement with us that we've never spoken to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in most cases, the tenant, it's been certainly my experience and historically from the other leases that tenants are not represented by brokers because it increases the rent.
Yeah. Any questions of Amy or?
So is there a difference between a lease and a lease option?
Interesting question.
Option wouldn't you get a commission till it was executed, would it?
You know, I do think that there's a reference to lease options. And I wish I could reference it right off the top of my head.
Same page.
It's in there.
3.
Yeah, it's in there, right?
Okay.
How it's handled.
Oh, yeah. 3.
Number 3. I think it's that that the commission isn't paid until the option is exercised. If you trust my brain, which.
All right, who
Oh,
wants?
here, options, yeah, number 3.
I'd like to make a motion to approve section 2024-14.
Second. With the change suggested.
Right.
Okay, so a motion is made by Commissioner Sorber. Who was the second?
I didn't hear. Just so.
Commissioner Buble for the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the shirt real quick, publicly?
It's available for sale.
Yeah.
The tourism branding project
Should have wore my
that
hat. I thought about it.
Gina was involved in selecting the logo. She was part of that team. And this is what the economic team tourism group came up with. And I think it's really fantastic. So
Yeah.
there's hats and shirts available for purchase.
Yeah, and the app is really cool.
Okay. Come to the most exciting part of the meeting. Code of ethics acknowledgement. Expecting lots of transitions in this.
Let's get out the call.
Let's get ethical.
Morning, commissioners.
That is a very cool. Good job. The picture.
Signpost.
Yeah, the sign.
Yes.
Very cool.
Oregon government ethics law applies to all elected and appointed officials, employees and volunteers at all levels of state and local government in all 3 branches of government. So there's a good chance probably almost 100% of the people sitting in this room, all these rules apply to all of us, all us employees. And interestingly, I was talking to some government lawyers from a couple of government agencies in Portland, and it came up that we do an annual ethics program like this, and they were all very impressed. I could tell they were like, they were going to take that back and say, Because it's just a good thing to do a check-in once a year. And we've done a great job of doing that here at the Port of Columbia County. I would also add that individual port commissioners have always done an excellent job of understanding ethical rules and operating with the highest standards of ethics. We hear, conflicts being announced all the time in this meeting, and that's kind of in these meetings, and that's kind of what it's all about. Okay, so our 2024 ethics program, we're going to talk about kind of what I refer to as the three big areas. This doesn't cover all of it by any means. We'd be here for a long time to cover all the rules, but the use of office for financial gain or avoiding financial detriment, the gift rule, which is that $50 rule. We'll talk about that and the exceptions to it, or some of the exceptions. Those are absolute prohibitions, those first two. And they, these rules all kind of work together a little bit, but you can't accept over $50 from a single source with a legislative or administrative interest in the business of the port.
Annually, right?
Annually, calendar year. Yep. And then conflicts of interest, which, as you know, you've got the conflict cards. I won't talk so much about them anymore. It's not as big of a deal as it once was. The luster has worn off. But the question there is, does the decision financially impact you, your relatives, or your business? We'll also talk about some of the rulings of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission from the last year. I like to kind of go through and look at all those rulings and see if we can use that to help you, going forward and maybe learn something from it. So, and again, that's I like to call the OGEC. It's a little easier to say. That's a 9-member governmental body that enforces and administers ethical rules in the state of Oregon. The appointment process for that is something like the leaders of the Oregon House and Senate from each party, they each get 2. So that's 8 of the 9, and then the governor appoints the 9th person. So that's how they make up that 9-member body. All right.
Slides are in this show. It's starting to sound like a 4-day seminar.
I'll try to get through. All right, so the first big point is that you are personally responsible for complying with the Code of Ethics. And we've talked about this before, but to me, the example of the city of St. Helens always comes up because they went in, they got dinged twice over there. And it was in both instances going into executive session with the negotiator on the real estate transaction there and the lawyer in the room. So the council members thought they were all good, right? But they were found to be in violation in both cases. They had some other problems with it too, because they actually they left the jurisdiction and, went and had a meeting in Portland. And I think anytime in both instances, when they're bringing in outside experts into executive session to talk about like strategy for the lagoon project, for that example, and then saying it's consult with counsel about pending litigation, it doesn't really add up. So you're going to get into some troubles. So what can you learn from those two things? I would say the first thing is to pay attention in executive session. Even though I'm sitting there with you, you met today, we're going to, we'll have real property transaction with the person negotiating the transaction. It is still your responsibility to deal with it. And then the other big one is what I call the general versus the specific. I think you want in executive session to be specific to what you're talking about. Anytime you start going off into goals and talking about other subjects, that's where you're going to get into troubles, basically. Okay, the goals of government ethics. The statute actually says service as a public official is a public trust, and that as one safeguard for that trust, the people require all public officials to comply. And then the other one is that appearances matter. People watch not only what we do, but how we do it. So along those lines, you should all have the actual code of ethics in front of you. And I just want to acknowledge that taking a look at this, reviewed this. Really, we're actually going to review it right now anyway, but I'm seeing head nodding all the way around as an acknowledgement of the code of ethics. Okay, slide. So the absolute prohibition on financial gain is you may not use or attempt to use your office or your position or office to obtain financial gain or avoid financial detriment. Slide. For yourself, your relative, or any member of your household. Okay, those are the three categories. They add the member of the household here. It's not included in the conflicts of interest standard, interestingly, but here it's a member of your household. Slide. Or any business. So if you, again, this is tied to the use of your office to do financial gain or avoid financial detriment. Any business you, your relative, or member of your household is associated with. Slide. And this is what we call the but-for test. So that financial gain is, this is how they tie it to the office, right? It wouldn't be available to you but for you holding the public office. So I was just going to offer some examples from the last year. First of all, there were, and this is rulings of the OGEC, the Government Ethics Commission. There were 3 ODOT employees, and one of the employees' wives were involved in a scheme to take property and a lot of chainsaw parts from the Oregon Department of Transportation, and then they were selling these things online on eBay in a lot of cases. Went on for 16 years, they were doing this. And they, 3 of the 4 went to prison. One went for 12 years, 7 years, and 3.5 years. So pretty blatant and obvious violation. They huge fines for these people. One of them got a $7,500 fine. Another one, a $6,000 fine for this. So this is sort of the height of, of not following the ethical rules. And as we'll see later, as I talk about this, in almost all of the cases, except for the extreme examples, the Ethics Commission will issue what's called a letter of education. So they don't fine most of the people, basically, that come before them. And then the other one, actually, technically, if you looked at the website as of this morning, the Ethics Commission, the ports would have pitched a clean sheet for the year. There's nothing on ports. However, I know because I'm in contact with the executive director of the Ethics Commission, and it's been in the newspapers, that the Port of Morrow and that whole situation on June 28th, they settled their longstanding issues that have been going on. And the folks left over in that were given a $2,000 fine as part of that settlement. So from what I can see, the ODOT employees in the Port of Morrow were the only fines for this whole last year. Everything else was letters of education. And just to recap on the Port of Morrow, it's a long and winding and complicated road, but basically 2 port commissioners, 1 county commissioner, and the executive director sat on a nonprofit board that was doing fiber optic cable out there. And then Amazon came along, as we know, with the Port of Morrow, and that nonprofit board sold the interest to a private company that they all sat on, the private company, and they made decisions about like enterprise zone tax exemptions and that sort of thing. And so it's pretty complicated though, because they did declare conflicts at different times, and sometimes they did, sometimes they did, basically over the years. So and I think that was going to be part of their defense, but they just decided to settle the matter, basically. They're still under investigation by the Department of Justice, though, for that. So that's still ongoing with that whole saga. But so you can see where the financial gain and conflict of interest provisions kind of kick in there. And then the other one is the Bourbon Gate, or the OLCC. The Department of Justice declined prosecution, but the Ethics Commission has not heard that one yet. And I'm told that that's going to be on their August agenda. So we'll see what happens with that one. That's where they were basically taking the, the nicest bottles of bourbon to Pappy Van Winkle and, giving their friends and family members inside deals on that. So probably be seeing something about that in the next month or so. That's financial gain. Any questions?
Do you know how the Ethics Commission determines their fines?
I don't. Not sure. I can find out though.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting because I was really surprised at that small amount of $2,000
For the Port of Morrow.
Port of Morrow
Those
because
folks made a lot more money.
they made a heck of a lot more money than that. So what was the?
I think well, at least in the newspapers, what it said is that their primary mission is educating public officials versus sanctioning them. And I think that they were probably going to be involved in a pretty snarly fight about that, and so they elected to just settle the thing.
Because it's
on both sides.
Yeah. If you compare it to St. Helens and the fines that those people got, seems no balance there. I mean, the infractions and the dollar amount. That's why I'd be interested.
Suggesting the government doesn't apply rules fairly?
I would never say that, never. But I would be interested to know if they have a matrix system that they use to determine fines.
I can find that out. Yeah. Okay, slide. So we've, and there's that's right. I forgot that I've put that up there. So that's what I just talked about. Moving on to gifts. So we're done with financial gain on this sheet that you have in front of you. Now we're going to talk about the gift limits. $50 limit per calendar year. Slide. From a single source that could reasonably be known to have a legislative or administrative interest. So as you're going to see as we go through the rest of this, I mean, obviously, if there's anything you're thinking about, just publicly announce the conflict, right? If there's any kind of feeling you have about it, you just announce it. That's how to deal with this stuff. Slide. I don't know if this definition helps or not. I debated whether to even include this slide, but it's an economic interest distinct from that of the general public in any matter subject to your decision or vote. So, slide. Okay, gift exceptions to $50 limit. They've made this very simple and easy to apply. Slide. It's the gift exceptions. Good luck with that. There's a lot going on. So we'd like the rules for public officials to be a little bit more simplified. So I'm just going to hit on a couple of them here. Slide. Gift does not include gifts from relatives or members of your household. That's an important one to know. And of course, it doesn't include reimbursement of your expenses. That's taken out of it. Slide. Oftentimes the question of admission or food and beverage at events comes up, and it's really all about whether you're representing the port at that. So if you're representing the port, then you, your relative, your member of your household who accompany you to the reception, meal or meeting can be covered. It's not a gift. It's not subject to that gift $50 limit. My advice on private meals, don't do them. Just pay your own way. It's just the best practice. I think we've all agreed on that one in the past.
Or can easily pay for the commissioners.
Absolutely.
That's lunches or whatever, they have to be privately paid, just not paid by them.
Yep. And hopefully the port does pay for your lunches, business lunches, and that when you're, when you're conducting port business. Slide. Oh yeah, I always cite this acceptance, very interesting one. The private meal is okay if you bring a contract along with you. Reviewing any business agreement during the private meal, then it's okay for the other party to pay for it. So that is an exception to the rule. So somebody got that one, and that's in statute.
It seems like a loop.
Yeah. Paper. Okay, slide. All right, conflicts of interest. The third big area in ethics. We've talked a lot about, there's nothing wrong with having conflicts of interest. That happens based on personal, business, or relationships, especially in smaller communities. Dealing responsibly with conflict of interest situations is the central act in government ethics. It's how you deal with them. It's not the fact that they exist. Click. So does the decision financially impact you, your relatives, or your business? It's the cards. Hopefully you've got this with you. Obviously, it's a would versus could. And in that area of potential, which is almost all of them, is there a possibility that there's a conflict of interest? Then you disclose and you can still participate in the discussion or the vote. If it's an actual conflict, which we really don't see a lot of those, then you disclose and then you're done. No discussion or action allowed. And these are the areas where with the Ethics Commission this last year, as I looked at all the cases, this is where people got in a lot of trouble, basically. Any questions on this so far? Slide. Caution is the best approach. Always disclose or announce potential conflicts and you will stay out of trouble. Just announce that. All right, the Ethics Commission, remembering that there's no monetary penalty if done on the advice of counsel. And actually in the second St. Helens one, their lawyer was in the room and even wrote a declaration to the commission from the lawyer saying, hey, I thought this was consult regarding pending litigation. And the Ethics Commission said no about that because they weren't talking about pending litigation. Really, they had experts in the room and they were talking about like goals and strategies for the Lagoon project. So it wasn't enough to have the lawyer say that basically. So again, back to your personal responsibility to say like, well, wait a minute, are we really talking about pending litigation or litigation likely to be filed? So we don't go in under that one, as you know. We go in under another section, which is the attorney-client privileged memos, right? Which allows you to talk about legal strategy and advice with your lawyer. So that's what we go in executive session most often. They did adopt some new rules. Interesting, back to the St. Helens example, when they went out of county to hold their meeting, before the last year, the only way a citizen who could complain about a public meeting problem would have to file a lawsuit. So St. Helens and a few other jurisdictions went to the legislature, and now there's a whole new process basically for this, where the Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over complaints for public meetings. We don't see a lot of them at all, ever. But what happens is, so it'll be interesting to see when, if and when something happens, what they did is they said, you go to the port and complain first. I think they have 30 days to bring their complaint to us. Then we have 21 days to respond to the complaint. And then if it's not resolved through all of that, then the citizen has to show that they've done that process with the Ethics Commission and bring it to them. And if they don't show that they've done that, then it's automatically dismissed. So there's a pretty extensive process, and that was approved by the 2023 Oregon legislature. And then the other one that applies to commissioners is that there's now a required training, which is once per term. That this took effect January 1st of this year. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do, because Krista and I have been checking with the SDAO and the Ethics Commission. They have not put the training out there yet. It's not available yet. So there was supposed to be an update in the spring, and they've now said, come back in December for your training. So I don't know how they're gonna deal with that, the required training, more to follow on that.
So this doesn't apply as required training?
It does apply, they haven't set it up yet.
Oh, gotcha.
It's only been a year since the legislature passed it.
Yeah.
So there will be a training and it's once per term that you'll have to do it. So it could get kind of tight if your term is ending next year. So we'll keep you updated. All right. Quick review. As I said, letters of education in most cases, so you have to read a letter. Fines were in those extreme cases that I showed you, the Port of Morrow. And this was out. The other thing, I didn't put the stats up here, but it was about 75 violations and then over 100 dismissals of cases. So far more, a greater number of the cases are dismissed at the Oregon Ethics Commission than are actually found to be violations. This is the largest category of violations, which is interesting. That just groups not announcing executive session. There was a lot of those basically, and they did many of them. You know, you're talking these water district, fire districts, all these things. They did it over and over again. You know, one of them was found in violation like 9 times or something like that for not announcing executive session. And then the second category is not announcing conflicts. And, you know, these get sort of complicated and there's many of them. I thought I would just highlight 3 perhaps that sort of boil it down. Basically, the Ashland Parks and Recreation, the commissioner was in running for a job for the Parks District. And even though the commissioner didn't participate in the discussion and then left the room before the vote, that was a violation because they didn't publicly announce their comment. Okay, that's the whole point of this is you have to publicly announce it in a public meeting. And so not announcing conflicts is a big deal. So I think that's my big point of this right now is to remember that you've got to say it. It's not enough to get up, say nothing, leave, whatever. That's just not enough under the law. Morrow County Commissioner sat in meetings about COVID relief funds, didn't disclose that his business was applying for the relief funds. This one even sat in on the discussion, which his business had applied for before finally abstaining from the vote, but sitting in on the discussion, not announcing the conflict, that was a violation. And the last one, City of Powers City Councilor received a nuisance violation for storing junk debris and trash on his property. The councilor received a $500 fine in front of the judge. The judge gave the city councilor 90 days to go back to city council and amend the ordinance or the rule that it was. However, when the councilor took it to the council, never mentioned a conflict in this and voted on it. And they amended the rule, which benefited the individual councilors, didn't mention it all, obviously held to be a violation, and the council resigned from office as a result of that. And I think that is it. So as I said, conflict situations will arise. It's dealing with them that's the important thing, and remembering to announce your conflicts.
Counselor, do we let SDAO know that we've done this training, and is there any benefit to us? It's one of those.
I think there is a reduction at our insurance costs. Yes. Any questions at all? Would you like a conflict card?
Sure.
You have like a whole group of these. I probably should take.
Yes, I will pass them out. Here we go.
Okay, well, thank you. That maybe not the most exciting topic, but very necessary. So.
Very thorough. Thank you.
And a good reminder.
All right.
Okay,
There.
item D, we added a discussion around the executive directory salary process after review, as well as how that works with cost of living and all that.
So in the course of doing the evaluation review this year, which I must say I thought was the best, most collaborative one I've ever been involved with. So thank you all. went very well, but discussion was the employees' cost of livings are run through a matrix that are adjusted based on their valuation, so the score affects their increase. The question was, is that the same with the executive director? And the answer I got was most likely yes. I mean, I think that he should have been treated the same, but I thought it would be easiest to clear it up here. And my intention would be to make a motion to set policy that the executive director be treated the same for salary increases as the staff unless acted upon by the commission. The commission has the right to stop the raise or increase the raise or whatever anytime they want. But absent that, the default should be that, I believe, should be that he would be treated the same as the employees.
So point of clarification on that. Cost of living is one thing. It just happens based on whatever the CPI is. And then merit increases are tied to the review process. And depending on the score on the review and where you're at in your salary range, you get a prescribed percentage increase. Does that line up with what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Following that process, yeah,
Is that how the process works?
so you got the COLA, and then your score for your review gets factored in, and you may get, more than the COLA.
Yeah, your COLA is adjusted by your review.
Okay. In my mind, the COLA is always separate.
It is generally.
And then you get an adder based on the.
I think it may be simple.
This one was said if we get an adder or a subtractor, I mean, it kind of drives everybody in the middle, but the expectation is that as you're an employee here longer, your reviews should be better. So the standard kind of rises.
Makes sense.
As you get further into this.
I think that's a merit increase. I think that's true.
For me,
But even whatever the process is, I think we could agree that the executive director be treated the same as the other employees unless the commission takes action.
For cost of living.
Otherwise, the problem is in or left in limbo of does he get it? Cost of living or what should it be? And I would think that absent commission action, that it should be the same
As the board staff.
as the staff.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
but this is so different than we've ever done it in the 5 years I've been here before. And the one thing I don't know is I've never seen the matrix. So I don't feel like I'm in any position to say one way or the other. I mean, we have one employee only to deal with. And to leave it to this nebulous matrix without even knowing what the matrix looks like.
So that was my fault. I dropped the ball on getting the matrix out.
There is a matrix we use currently for court staff.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think I'm clear on the ask. It's just whatever staff would get, Sean would be
And which we've never done before. That's my dilemma is I don't know what this looks like, and it feels very mechanical. And I do think that the executive director is in a totally different position. It requires a little more effort on our part to parse out what is needed and what goals have been met. And I have always enjoyed the process of deciding how this is going to work as far as pay goes. And to now just turn that over to a mechanical process just doesn't feel right.
So I have two thoughts on that, just real quick, if that's okay. I think one, the commission would always reserve the right to just pay however, like, John. This would just be tied specifically to his salary or his performance evaluation.
Right.
And if we, if like last year, we adjusted based on kind of a comparison of different executive director salaries. If that needed to happen again, we still have that opportunity, if I'm understanding this.
These are two separate things.
Yes.
There's still the performance evaluation. And then there's the CPI raise, which is intended to keep, said employee at market with inflation. I mean, so they're two very separate things to me. Obviously open for discussion on it. I mean, I don't have an issue with it. I mean,
one thing I like about it is that it forces us to treat the executive, if there's a different executive, we have to treat them fairly. or we're at least encouraged to, with essentially a process that says if your score is X, you get Y percentage. And it's not just like, oh, we like this one better, so we get, or him or her.
And of course, this is the first time we have not had an HR person helping us in the evaluation. Always before, Richard has been here giving us best practices, telling us what's going on in the industry itself. And this particular year, we have not had the benefit of that. I find that to also be problematic, and I do hope that we're going to be correcting that in the coming year.
I work in the field of, so I do contract negotiations, some private, some public. It would not be uncommon. I realize he's the executive director, but the whole point is to make sure, he's not falling behind in market or a set employee. So.
And I believe what we're proposing is using the materials that have been given to us, salary scale and whatnot, from the HR professional that are applied to the rest of the staff here. I feel pretty confident in that sort of process. I'm just 1 of 5, but
We'll have those two, we'll have those sheets. He's still preparing those for us.
do you have a comment?
Oh, I think maybe it got sorted out, but yeah, just making clear that the COLA or CPI is separate from the pari-mutuel scoring under our policy, right? So I think this was just talking about the COLA aspect. Is that right? I was a little confused on that.
I'm a little confused on it too.
Let me try this. I would ask that staff bring back to the commission a process for considering executive director salary. Because at the end of the one this year, it was not clear. Yeah, I worked with Guy and with Bob and with Sean, and we could find one place that kind of said we did it one way, and we could find one that said we did another. I'm not so worried about how we do it because, again, just like the succession plan, we can do whatever we want as a commission. But to leave the chair with a process that's not clear is a mess.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The other point I was going to make is I think around here, we find the pari-mutuel scoring system a little bit complicated in application. So I've been kind of looking around for future changes to that would make it easier for staff to understand what they're getting and why.
For the purpose of this year, if I may, I had talked to Brian and Robert separately. I am fully comfortable with COLA only and not going through the merit, scoring and stuff like that. You guys took care of me last year. I think that's great. I'm not looking to get COLA plus or anything. Keep it simple. This year we do the 3.25. And I'm happy. I'm happy with that if the commission's happy with that.
So I'm hearing 2 things. One, we're going to reevaluate the process at a later date. And 2, we need to take care of any increase to Sean's salary as a result of the performance evaluation. I think we should do that today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we heard Sean's request, so.
I would make a motion that the executive director be granted the same cost of living increase that was granted to staff.
Good second.
Effective July 1.
Effective July 1. Motion by Commissioner Kaiser, seconded by Commissioner Sorber. Any further discussion in regards to that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those? Motion carries.
Okay. And we'll hear more later.
Yeah. Yep. At a future date, we'll talk about the process.
Share some information with you all, the matrix so Richard had to create my position as far as the tiers go. And he put me where I'm at currently in the middle. And some of that, the way the current scoring works, some of that would affect you're on top of your COLA potentially, right? So depending on your score you get, we'll try to simplify that like we're talking. We'll get you guys a process on how we'll move forward for me.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay, moving on. Right back to you, Executive Director's report.
Thank you, President, Mr. President. You can see the calendar there. Yesterday was really kind of a busy day. Yeah, the Columbia Economic Team Annual Meeting, which was really interesting. There's some information you should be made aware of. Oregon Business and Industry Executive Director was there and talked about IP 17, which is a proposed corporate tax, 3% tax, which it's going to have so many downstream effects. They anticipate 30% inflation as a result. And the carrot that they're dangling out there is kickers, $700 to $1,100 kickers that every Oregonian will get because we're overpaying, or these corporations that are over 25 million in net revenue, net, have to pay 3% on top of. So there's trickle down. Every sale hits 3%. Obviously, it comes to the consumer. Not a ballot measure yet, but it's being proposed by, it sounds like a California universal pay equity group or something like that. And of course, that again, that carrot is that kicker that they're telling Oregonians they could get. It would raise potentially $6 billion in revenue for the state additionally, which sounds great, but it's mostly all fluff. And like they said, it's going to go back to the citizens. Anyway, something to track.
I think a worse person to give that money to than the state.
Let them manage it. So that's something that came out of the CET meeting. I think something we need to be tracking that, and more information we can share as OBI sends it out.
I wouldn't mind having that presentation shown to the, I don't know how others felt, really informative to me.
Only if we have the other side, because this is the part I don't understand. Clearly, she was very clear on what the downside is. I would love to hear what the opposition is saying that is the positive. I mean, they've got the signatures. They obviously spend a lot of time. They've done a lot of education around this, and yet I'm in the dark, and I would love to know if we're going to do one side of the issue, I would like us to be balanced and have both sides.
I don't think they have the signatures yet, do they?
Yes.
They've submitted them.
Yeah.
It hasn't been
It hasn't been approved,
yet.
but
Yeah.
they have them.
Seen that.
Yeah.
I'll get a presentation from yesterday, and I'll look for something on for the proposers.
Right.
Yeah, I believe there's a website that has a bunch of information on it.
Actually, they're not the opposers, they're the proponents.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Stall there. Which I know, city county dinner last night, actually down at the community center, wasn't as bad as you might have thought. They had some swamp cooler things that going on there, and wind chill helped with the fans blowing. Tonight, I'm from 4 to 6, I'm attending a first technical advisory committee for St. Helens Economic Opportunity Analysis, and it's being done by Eco Northwest. I'll definitely find out more tonight, but very curious looking at some things we've talked about, how can we get businesses to come here is what I think the goal is, but looking at our opportunities in the area. So I'll report more back after I've gone to that first meeting. Chamber of Commerce.
We're actually foregoing our chamber meeting.
Because of rainier days?
Yeah.
No rainier days or no chambers. Rainier days does start on Friday the 12th. Also Thursday, Colpack is, and some of you may be interested in this, hosting a North Coast Blue Economy event. I think that's down at Crooked Creek. I'll double check, but they're gonna inform us, teach us about the blue economy. Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. And I think it has to do with not being quite green, fully green, but there's a shade of green and blue. So
I believe it was kind of maritime based.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Anything and everything related to maritime economy.
That's tomorrow. If you're interested, I can send you the time and location. Getting Friday, before I head down to Rainier Days, I'm going to give a port update at St. Helens Kiwanis over at Elks, and then have the van will be packed up. And we'll head down to Rainier Days. And thank you to Brian and Commissioner Ward for volunteering to help with the booth there. We'll make a good showing there on Friday. It's the 16th Monday. Yeah, the executive committee meeting on dredging. This is something that the Oregon Public Ports Association is looking at, trying to get some legislative action or help with all the ports that are faced with dredging that none of us can afford. Next, PGE Port monthly call on the 18th, South County collab. Let's see, I'm going to take next Thursday and Friday off. So I'll be out of the office in Bend. And, oh, and on the 23rd, noted there, it's also my anniversary, the 23rd, 30 years married. Teams meeting with DEQ regarding Pope and Talbot cleanup site. So that's going to be riveting. So I'm looking forward to that. I did put on here an expense that sounds like a terrible way to say it.
20 years and
Yes. Thank you. And I should have put that on there. I might as well went the next day there, the 7/24, we will have a special or the work session and DEQ will be present.
And that'll be our evening meeting. And I will be out of town. I will attend virtually as long as my travel plans go smoothly. So if I think you'd be running that one.
And what time is that again?
6 p.m.
7/24, the Teams meeting or
The
in-person session? 6 p.m. I did list an expense there that I'm not required to, but I just did it. Yeah, if it's over 50,000, I'm supposed to notify you, but I want to let you know we did engage Mr. Luckett for some engineering consulting services, as has been invaluable for Elliot and us and continuing in he knows the engineering stuff that we want to say better than we do. So it'll be helpful for us. And then also to prove some stuff that we're seeing from consultants.
I think that's a wise use of money.
Thank you. Yeah. Manager reports, I gave you an example, more than example, it's actually live data. But this is what I believe we talked about, and we can definitely massage a little more. We wanted to keep it bullets and, not too specific. And I made a couple of minor edits before I printed these out. But yeah, this is what we'll try to have. And if you have any suggestions or would like to see it differently, please let me know. It's easy to do electronically. Summer community events. We have this Friday, we're setting up the booth at Rainier Days. And Thursday, July 18th next week. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I'm out, but we do have a presence at the Columbia County Fair and Rodeo. And Saturday, August 10th, Columbia City Celebration, which is always a fun time. And if you're interested in signing up for anything, there is a sign up sheet on the whiteboard down the hall. If any commissioners are interested, there's still slots available.
I just want to make a comment on the manager reports. I think this is excellent information, stuff that doesn't necessarily rise to the level of being presented at the commission meeting, but keeps us well informed about all the good work staff is doing. So very much appreciate seeing these.
I did a legal one. It's not in there.
All right.
Yeah. I'm actually okay with that. I have a lot of reluctance doing a legal report.
What do you say?
For all the obvious reasons.
Yeah.
It would be very, very general.
And that concludes my report. Unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions for Sean? Right, commissioner reports. We'll start with Commissioner Kaiser.
Not much. I would only like to say that, first of all, comment how beautiful the grounds look out there. This is a nice setting. I know it's not easy to maintain the big trees and the lawn and all, but everything outside looks very nice. Yeah, that's it, I guess.
Commissioner Shore, just work down the table.
Thank you, Bob, for taking your time out of your day to go for this lovely code of ethics. I know it is not exciting, but it is needed, certainly. And I'd also like to comment on the reports here. This is nice, the end of this, to be able to breathe cigarette and look at it. And thank you for our airport updates, even though they weren't fun ones. Hopefully people can keep them wheels down and not up out there.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I did attend the meeting in Columbia City last night. And it was very good. Actually, I thought it was very informative and enjoyable. So yeah. And our kids played basketball in that place before, so my memories are playing basketball there. But having that city county meeting was great. And hopefully we can resolve this for Columbia City as soon as possible. So okay. Thank you.
Yeah, same. I echo in the last 5 years, the increase in information, the quality of information that we're getting to the commission is laudable. And it's something that you don't even know that you need it until you see it. And it's like, wow, yeah, why haven't we been doing this forever? So yeah, thank you to everybody who participates in that. Yesterday was a busy day. CET was a long meeting. It was also very informative. And I really want to comment on Paul Vogel's mention last night at the city county dinner about how wonderful it was that people showed up to that dinner on the hottest night of the year and participated because that's what we're interested in doing. We're interested in collaborating, we're interested in supporting each other. And we showed it by the numbers that showed up last night, and it was impressive.
If
I have.
I may, I want to point out and give some credit. Since we brought Bob on staff, and he said, hey, you want me to help with the meeting stuff? I'm like, God, would you please? He's like a dog with a bone, right? And you guys have noticed some changes, and Krista's been super receptive, and Guy, and it's really a testament to a lot of his efforts and helping to push things and also with the data that we see. So having that eagle eye, like, okay, this is what we want in the packet. It's really invaluable having somebody with this kind of horsepower in just down the hall. So I appreciate Bob. I appreciate everybody, but I just want to, you mentioned the meeting and the information and stuff. It's a lot of it's credit to Bob. Appreciate it, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
Nope.
So I got a text message during the meeting and somebody is requesting a copy of the Code of Ethics presentation that you just gave. So just give you some kudos for that. I think it was probably the transitions that put it over the edge. I also attended the CET annual meeting and a little bit of the city county dinner. Excellent events, as everybody else said. I would echo those comments. I also wanted to specifically thank Robert for your 2 years of being the chair and all the work put in for that. So didn't want that to get missed. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And on that note, I believe we do have executive session.
Yes, would you like me to read the script?
Yes, please.
Board of Columbia County will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660-2E to deliberate with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions. And there it is. F, to consider exempt public records, including written legal advice from myself, which is privileged and exempt from disclosure. Representatives of the news media are designated, and designated staff are allowed to attend. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the discussions and deliberations during this or any executive session. We'll return to open session, and we don't expect any decisions to be announced. Any persons excluded from executive session are welcome to return to open session when it is resumed. Thank you.
Take a 5-minute bathroom break.
5 minutes. On a meeting 10 minutes ago.
We are out of executive session and there being no further business, meeting adjourned.